My biological parents returned after 25 years and tried to bribe me with millions. When I was 3 years old, my parents made a decision that shaped the rest of my life. They gave me away. Not because they were struggling, not because they were too young or poor or desperate. No, they were thriving. Mason and Vanessa, my biological parents, were already well into their careers as stock traders, 20-somethings with fat wallets, flashy cars, and egos to match. They were addicted, not to drugs, but to the rush of the market, the parties in Manhattan penthouses, the kind of life that turns your child into an inconvenience. They gave me up. There was no tragic accident, no messy custody battle, no heroic sacrifice. Just a quiet transaction. Papers signed. A goodbye that felt more like, thanks for the detour, now back to the good life. Of course, I didn't understand any of that back then. All I remember is a cold room, strange voices, and my tiny hand slipping out of my mother's as she turned away. I didn't understand what was happening. I waited for them to come back for days, and days turned to weeks and weeks to months. But fate for once was kind. I was adopted by Sarah and Tom, a quiet, hard-working couple who lived in a rural town 2 states over. They were farmers, the kind who still believed in things like community, hard work, and checking in on your neighbors after a storm. They couldn't have kids of their own. I was their miracle. And they treated me like one. No limos, no glittering towers, just morning chores, fresh eggs, muddy boots, and the kind of love that didn't need words. They taught me to plant seeds, mend fences, and never speak if I didn't mean it. That life wasn't about what you owned, it was about what you built. And somehow I grew up whole. I didn't think much about Mason and Vanessa. They were a blurry memory, like a dream you can't quite recall. I never tried to find them. I never needed to. I had a family. I went to college, studied agriculture, and came back home. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because I wanted to. I wanted to help keep the farm running, to take care of my parents the way they'd taken care of me. For a while, life was quiet. Good. Until one rainy spring morning, a sleek black car pulled into our gravel driveway. I was fixing a busted water pump near the barn when I saw it, the kind of car that looked allergic to dirt. It idled for a few seconds before the door opened and a man stepped out. He looked familiar. Tall, sharp suit, expensive haircut. Then I saw her, the woman in heels who stepped out behind him, shielding herself from the drizzle with a designer umbrella. Mason and Vanessa. After 24 years of silence, my parents had returned. They looked exactly like the type of people who'd step out of a car like that, polished, smug, untouchable. But the years had added something else too. Lines. Where? Like the party had kept going long after the joy had run out. Vanessa smiled first. That tight, rehearsed kind of smile. "Milo," she said, stepping forward like she expected me to run into her arms. "You've grown so tall." Mason nodded behind her, hands in his pockets. "Didn't expect you to look so much like the old man," he muttered, like it was some compliment I should be grateful for. I didn't move. The rain pattered on the barn's tin roof behind me, and for a moment none of us said anything. I just stared at these two people, strangers who once decided I wasn't worth the trouble. "What are you doing here?" I finally asked. Vanessa blinked, taken aback. We thought it was time to reconnect, to fix things. We've made mistakes, Milo. We know that." "You made one," I said flatly, "and I don't think you're here to fix it. You're 24 years too late. That should have ended it." But Mason took a step forward, ignoring the mud on his shiny shoes. "We don't expect forgiveness. Just a chance to talk," he said. Against my better judgment, I let them come inside. They sat stiffly at our old wooden kitchen table, looking painfully out of place among the faded wallpaper and chipped coffee mugs. My mom, the real one, would have hated them sitting there. They gave me a story. A beautiful, tragic, carefully curated story. They'd been overwhelmed, too young, too busy. They'd always regretted giving me up, had searched for me but didn't know how to approach, had matured, had changed. It sounded like it had been practiced in the mirror. But part of me, some stupid, wounded part, wanted to believe them. So I agreed to meet again, once, just to talk. And we did, a few more times over the next month, always in public places. I never let them come back to the farm. Vanessa would talk about her travels. Mason bragged about his old hedge fund clients. They asked questions about my life but never really listened to the answers. It felt like an interview, like they were rehearsing a role they didn't know how to play. Then one day, Mason invited me to their hotel. "I have something to show you," he said over the phone. "Just come by. You'll want to see it." Stupidly, I went. The hotel suite was massive, all marble counters and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. There was champagne chilling in a bucket. Too much effort for a simple visit. That's when Mason dropped a thick envelope onto the table. "Thought you should see this," he said. Inside were documents, legal ones, financial ones. I skimmed the pages, confused. Then I saw a name that stopped me cold. Mine. I kept reading, and the puzzle pieces started snapping into place. Fast. A family trust. 8 figures. Locked away since my birth. But it came with a clause. All direct family heirs must be present, acknowledged, and legally unified for full disbursement of the estate. In other words, no Milo, no millions. They didn't come back because they missed me. They came back because I was the missing piece to a fortune they couldn't touch without me. My stomach turned. I looked up at Mason and Vanessa. Their expressions were neutral, almost bored, like they'd done their part, told their truth. Time for me to play mine. "You lied," I said quietly. Vanessa tried to recover. "No, we didn't lie. We waited for the right time to explain." "You waited until I was useful." Mason leaned back, arms crossed. "We're offering you a cut, Milo. A big one. Bigger than anything you'll ever earn in a lifetime shoveling cow shit." That's when I realized they didn't even respect me. Not who I was, not how I lived, not what I'd built. They just wanted my signature. I stood up and walked to the door. "You abandoned me for money once," I said, "and now you're back for the same reason." I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. I just left. A few weeks passed. I figured that was the end of it. They didn't call, didn't show up. I thought maybe they finally got the message that they couldn't buy their way into my life. Then came the letter. Not an email, not a phone call. A letter, handwritten. "Milo, Mason is sick. Liver failure. It's bad. He's asking for you. Please come. Vanessa." I stared at the paper for a long time. I wanted to burn it, toss it into the fireplace, and pretend it never arrived. But something tugged at me. Not forgiveness, not guilt. Just curiosity, maybe closure. So I went. They weren't in a hotel anymore. Vanessa had rented a small apartment closer to the hospital. The luxury had faded fast. The place was quiet, dull, stripped of the arrogance they once carried like perfume. Mason was thin, yellow in the eyes, tubes in his arm, too weak to keep up the smug act. He looked at me like I was the ghost of a better man. "I wanted to say goodbye," he rasped. I nodded but said nothing. He didn't apologize. Not really. He just talked, mostly about himself, about deals he'd made, yachts he'd partied on, the money he thought would make everything okay. Then he handed me an envelope. Another one. I didn't take it. Just look at it, he said. Inside was a check, bigger than anything I'd ever seen, enough to buy 10 farms, enough to retire 3 times over. All you have to do is sign, he whispered. Sign the trust release, take your share, help your mother, help yourself. That word again, mother, like it meant something. I looked at him, and I swear, for a second, I saw regret in his eyes. Not because of what he did, but because I refused to play along. I tore the check in half, dropped it in the trash. You don't get to buy me, I said. He didn't argue. He just closed his eyes. Mason died the next morning. I wasn't going to go to the funeral, but Vanessa called, voice raw with grief, not performative this time, just broken. I don't have anyone, she said. Please, I don't want to do this alone. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe because part of me needed to see it through. The funeral was small, cold. I stood in the back, near the wall. I didn't belong there, not with the people wearing designer black and whispering about trust funds. Afterward, Vanessa pulled me aside. She looked smaller, fragile, like the wind might carry her away. I'm not asking for money, she said. I know that's over, but I don't have anyone left. Would you consider staying for a while? Just until I get on my feet. I should have said no. But I saw something then, a woman who had spent her whole life chasing the wrong things and now stood at the edge of nothing. So I offered a middle ground. I won't live with you. But if you need groceries, medicine, someone to call when things go wrong, I'll answer. That's all I can give. She nodded silently. That was the last time we spoke in person. A few weeks later, I got a package. No note, no return address. Inside was a USB drive and a manila folder. The drive had a single video file. I clicked play. It was Mason. He was sitting in a hotel room, clearly drunk. The date stamp showed it was a year before he ever reached out to me. He looked into the camera and said, I think I screwed up. The old man locked the trust. It's Milo. I know we should have tried earlier, but I thought we had time. I thought we could find a way, but the old man made it airtight. Vanessa thinks we can just play nice, get him on board. But I don't know if he'll ever forgive us. Hell, I don't know if we deserve it. He laughed bitterly. If you're watching this, kid, I guess we ran out of time. The video cut out. Turns out my Mason's father was a big-shot Wall Street CEO as well, but he didn't approve of what Mason and Vanessa did to me. He even wanted to adopt me, but they disagreed, saying that it would not be a good look. My grandfather tried to find me, but to no success, and as his last act he tied his entire estate into a trust, and the only way to access it would be for the family to be whole again, meaning full legal adoption. And they only found out when Mason's father died. They tried long and hard to find a way, but to no success. It was airtight. Inside the folder was one old photo of me with an old well-dressed gentleman, my grandfather, and a shorthand written note by my grandfather to me, just saying how sorry he was that he failed me. I still keep this picture and note in my wallet to this day. Just to remember where I came from, who I chose to become. Because in the end, family isn't DNA. It's who shows up, who stays, who sacrifices. Mason and Vanessa gave me life but wanted nothing to do with me. My real parents gave me a home. I never signed the trust, never took the money. Instead, I used everything they taught me, Every lesson from the farm, every seed of loyalty and work and love, and turned our little patch of land into something bigger. A place where no kid would ever feel unwanted. And whenever people ask me why I didn't take the millions, I just smile and say, because some things are worth more than money, like peace, like loyalty, like knowing who your real family is. They gave me away once. They don't get to buy me back.